Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Now can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello, you're listening to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to West Lothian's finest football team, Livingston Football Club, and proudly sponsored by Strana Apparel. My name's Euan, and today I am once again joined by Angus after his gallivanting trip off to Prague. Angus, have you recovered? Is the main question.
Yeah, Jim, it's probably shocking to hear that I'm probably one of the more sensible ones in all honesty, but I'm not going to dig out my pals in that way on this episode there. But yeah, nice little trip away. Absolutely tremendous experience finding a little Irish bar to go and watch the Livingston versus Hibs game where, being the only person happy is, the Hibs fans I was with were devastated to have failed to a 3-2 loss, and the entire pub full of Celtic fans raging that they drew 0-0 with St Johnstone. But so that's always a great experience to kind of have as well. But yeah, good to be back. Away to Turkey next week as well, actually, Ewan. So yeah, continuing the globe trotting. So luckily we don't have a game, so I'm not missing out on anything for the men's. Sadly missing another trip to sunny Perth though for the women's. But yeah, how are you doing yourself?
I'm good, mate. It's been an eventful couple of weeks. House move, new job on the horizon as well. So, yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks for myself, but unfortunately I wasn't able to make the St Mirren game due to other commitments this weekend, so it's kind of relying on you for your viewpoint of that. But when you were in that Irish pub in Prague, did you do what the wee Kelly fan did when he was abroad? Did you just get up and go, yes, get in there, Lona Livy, and just walk out, mic drop?
I think I was just kind of sat there, to be honest, and I was just kind of like cheering the whole time. I did overhear somebody say, "I've never seen a Livingston top outside of the stadium before," so that was that was an interesting one to have. Yeah, I think instead of walking away at full time, I think I was just sitting there embracing the negativity. I think I was just taking all the power from that, and I was like, "This is absolutely stupendous." Where everybody's cussing and swearing and that, and just having a time of my life.
Just with the smuggest look on your face you could
Oh,
imagine.
always.
As always, search for Talk Livi on your preferred podcast streaming site where you can follow or subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And you can also catch up on all our episodes that we've done to date there as well.
We'll kick things off by looking back at our Premiership fixture against St Mirren, as despite taking the lead late on, the Lions were made to settle for a point.
Our women's side were in Scottish Cup action, and again, a late goal in extra time would see the Lionesses exit the competition at the hands of St Johnstone.
Finally, Ewan caught up with Ross from the county corner to look ahead to our trip to Dingwall to take on Ross County.
The Lions faced bogey team St Mirren and West Lothian, looking to make it back-to-back Premiership wins. Despite a late Luigi De Lucas goal putting the Lions in front, St Mirren would equalise deep into stoppage time for the game to finish 1-1, and the Lions are still waiting for their first Premiership victory over St Mirren since, I believe, February 2020. Angus, what did you make of the game?
In all honesty, Ewan, it's kind of the game that we'd all sort of expect against St Mirren. Two kind of teams who are evenly matched, trying to like outcompete with one another, and that's essentially what kind of happened there. First half, in all honesty, a real kind of lack of quality in the game. I would say it's a lot of kind of long balls from both sides, trying to exploit the gaps in that. But, with both teams basically playing, kind of like a back five, there wasn't really much room to kind of be exploited there or anything kind of happening. So I think in the first half we were kind of limited to a number of chances. To be fair, I think that they probably went closest. They had a really good headed opportunity. Can't necessarily remember who it was, but
Was it
I think
Kiara Bacchus that had a decent chance for a header, I believe, and Kilty had one as well, which I think George made a decent save from.
I think it was Kilty, and George does really really well to get down and you have to tip it wide. And yeah, for us, I think we'll be disappointed in terms of, we didn't really create an awful lot. I think we had a couple of chances where we were able to get down the left hand side again. I think Joel Nibley and Penrice were working quite well together in terms of getting that overlap run there. I think that, Nibley maybe was having a bit of a frustrating game where, he wasn't really kind of getting on the ball and driving himself. And, the likes of Penrice, like bombing forward, is where most of our kind of joy was coming from. But again, it was kind of getting to the byline and then like the crosses being blocked or whatnot. We had a number of corners which, St Mirren seemed to be a bit shaky when we were putting free kicks from, deep into the half into their box. And then from corner kicks, we weren't anywhere near them to try and attack them. So it was quite a poor first half, I would say, in terms of not in terms of quality. I don't think that you could fault either team's endeavour. In all honesty, I think it was just a very competitive, scrappy game. In all honesty, and for the most part of the second half, that kind of continued as well. I think that we definitely came into it a lot more though as the game grew on. I think the introduction of Bruce Anderson was a big impact in that as well. As maybe it forced us to be a wee bit more clever if we were playing, so we couldn't just keep on humping it up to Curtis Guthrie and Joel Nibley up top. Obviously, there's the chance that controversial lines are being drawn out for the offside. I don't know if you've seen one in the fans forum, Euan, and it says this is where the point of contact, and it's a screenshot of I think Jason Holt's pass, and Jason Holt's leg's still about a foot away from the ball, and somebody's trying to claim that that's the point of contact. So I'm going to have to, trust the officiating here as much as I would love to lambast them for not giving us an offside goal in that. But to be fair to Bruce, it's a great finish. I think just before that as well, Jamie Brandon broke down the right hand side and had a one-on-one, which was well saved by Zach Hemmen in goals. But in terms of actual clear-cut chances, it was always going to be something like a loose ball from a set piece or that was going to make the breakthrough for either team. And, it ended up being us where a couple of like set pieces and that has ended up with Singari ending up on the kind of left hand side, just fires a ball across the face of the goal, and it's a nice wee finish from DeLucas to get a deserved first goal for the club for him. He's been absolutely tremendous since kind of breaking into the team this season, and he's maybe wrote himself into being one of the first names in the team sheet now with how well that he's been doing. And we've been called up for the national team in that as well, capping off a really great week for him by getting a goal as well. But unfortunately, we weren't able to hold on to it. I think that as soon as you score like that late on, the panic stations are there to hold on. And I think it was 6 or 7 minutes added on time as well. You're always kind of nervy about how you're going to hold on for the rest of the game. And unfortunately, we give away quite a silly free kick, which allows them to just get the ball forward. It allows them to keep some of their bigger players up, which ends up with a cross being worked to Gogic, who's able to outjump Jamie Brandon, and then the player, is it Manny, runs in, nicks it away to steal a point, which is a bit of a sucker punch at the end there to lose the 3 points like that. But in terms of the grand scheme of things, Sharon, it's probably a fair result. I don't think you can say that either team necessarily edged it or did an awful lot more than the other to kind of deserve to take the 3 points. So I think as well, if you'd asked a lot of people before the game, would they have taken a point? Probably would have. It's obviously just frustrating that it's happened in such a circumstance, and we could have ended up being, I think, apparently joint top going into the Sunday or something. But yeah, I think again the signs are there that we're proven to be a difficult team to play against. There's plenty of endeavour there. There's plenty of hard work, and it's just kind of good to have that element of our squad back. We probably would have lost that game last season, I would say. And I think that those kind of changes that have been made is, very much a positive to see, even though we did concede such a late equaliser.
Yeah, as I say, I've not had a kind of full opportunity to watch a rerun of the game back, but certainly when I was speaking to Callum Carson doing the preview for the game, we kind of talked about it as there's never typically a lot between the sides. It's always a 1-1, a 1-0, a 2-1. The games are always very, very close in the grand scheme of things. And, because both teams set up as you kind of mentioned there, that back three, like playing four across and then three up top, they're matching up as well this season in terms of how they set up quite naturally. And from the sounds of it and what I've seen off the game, the first half it was just the case of two teams cancelling each other out, albeit St Mirren probably had the slightly better of the opportunities. As you say, that header from Greg Kiltie, it's a really good save by Shamal George getting down to his right hand side. But I think we maybe slightly edged it from what, again, I've seen and heard from what the manager said in the second half. You mentioned that opportunity from Jamie Brandon, which he's kind of hit straight at Zach Kemming. You're looking for him to probably put that across the face of goal. You never know what could happen in that instance. The Bruce Anderson goal, a very typical one for Bruce Anderson, where he's playing on the shoulder a little bit, looking to get in behind. And it seems to have almost developed into a bit of a game plan for us this season, having Curtis Guthrie on for that first hour, almost roughing up a defence, and then Bruce coming on to try and stretch the game later on. And it seems to be causing teams a few problems. And I've seen the screenshot that was put up on the forum, I think was a very poor example. And for folk on the forum, I don't quite understand why folks seem to think there's this vendetta against Livingston FC from referees. I just think referees in this country are shite in general, but they actually got that decision spot on. He is fractionally offside. The bit I did like was the camera angle from VAR to show that he was offside, where it's almost at C3, where you're looking at the lines being drawn. I don't quite know how the geometrics work for VAR, but I think that's 2 or 3 times I've seen that kind of angle being used where they have shown the lines. But we did manage to take the lead very late on, as you say, that goal from Luigi De Lucas capping off a fantastic week for himself, being, as you mentioned, called up to the international side. He's also won our Player of the Month, and it was his birthday, I believe, as well. So all in all, a very good week for Luigi, and I think caps off what's been a terrific start to the season for himself individually. Initial flick on one by Michael Devlin, and Sangare's just put that ball into an area where you're hoping somebody can get a touch on it, and De Lucas is there in the middle of the 6-yard box to kind of poke it home. But the goal, it's just really scrappy and sloppy from our point of view. St Mirren do well to keep the ball alive. Gogic up against Brandon at the back sticks, a bit of a mismatch in terms of physicality, point of view, height advantage as well from Gogic, and he's won that initial contact, and then the man he's kind of glanced at home, and St Mirren have got that late equaliser, and it just seems to be a running theme with St Mirren. We can't seem to brush them or shrug them off in games like this. The amount of goals since we've been in the top flight where St Mirren have snatched kind of late goals against us is quite alarming. But yeah, when you look at it from the point of view that we've played 4 of the top 6 from last season, I think a lot of Livingston fans quite conceivably could have seen us sitting on 0 points at this point in the season, whereas we are sitting on 5 points. Have been, even the 4-0 defeat to Rangers, we've been incredibly competitive for large spells of that game as well. Take out the last 15 minutes where 3 of the goals have gone in, and you're probably coming away fairly satisfied that you're losing that game 1 or 2-0. And yeah, I think it's a very good start to the season, all in. I have to say, it's 1 defeat so far, which came at Ibrox, as I say. We've not lost another game in normal time, certainly lost on penalties to the Hamilton Accies, but it's been a very good start to the season. And I agree with you, Angus, that the thing I'm enjoying the most about it is almost just seeing us have this ruthless side to us in terms of how we're defending our box and being difficult to play against. Again, I love hearing opposition fans moan about our style of play. It gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling inside, and it kind of echoes back to the success that we had coming up into the Premiership originally in our first couple of seasons there. As I say, I'm really enjoying the fact that we're taking a bit more pride in our defending, which I'm sure will probably frustrate the manager and the players, that we've conceded a goal that was probably a little bit sloppy at the tail end there. But you could argue we could be sitting 4 points better off. We'd probably edged that game against Aberdeen at the start of the season, probably had the slightly better chances in that one. And then when you take the lead so late on in that game there, again, you'd be looking to see that game out. So we've probably actually left, I'd say, a minimum of at least 2 points out there, potentially at the start of the season. But 5 points from those opening 4 games, I think, is all in a very, very good start.
Yeah, I think looking at that start, a lot of people would have been massively surprised if we'd ended up with 0 points from it. Probably not. You've got a lot of people in the media probably tipping that as well. You look at St Mirren as well, though, who are kind of a team who, everybody seems to think that they're amazing, doing like amazing and all of that. And I think by the looks of the game on Saturday there really isn't much separating the two sides. But the difference is that St Mirren aren't going to get lambasted with the same kind of stuff that we do, which is obviously always kind of interesting as well. But yeah, you look at us getting 5 points from those kind of games. You look at like the Hearts, who have had, I think a lot of Hearts fans say that they've had like the easiest probably start to a season they could probably have asked. Well, one of the easiest starts they could have asked for, and they're only on what, 2 points or something, I believe. You're looking at Aberdeen now, who are 2 points as well. I think Hibs have just got their first win of the weekend, and that in comparison to a lot of teams kind of around us and all of that, or who have massively outspent us, to be to be blunt about it. We could be in a lot kind of worse position. So yeah, so as long as this kind of continues, I think a lot of us will be very content with that. I think that maybe there was a couple of concerns at the start of the season, but again, this team is just performing in a way that you can't ask for much more. In all honesty, you want to see that dig, you want to see that fight, and there is plenty of that in abundance from the team that's there. And it's just very enjoyable to be back there again. And something that was really nice to you as well was the atmosphere on Saturday. I actually think that the fans bought into it like a little bit more as well. I think they're spurred on by the kind of like the late goal as well. But it was a good wee atmosphere for maybe about 2,000 kind of people there. But hopefully that's something that can continue as well. But that does come down to the performances on the pitch as well. And hopefully the performance can continue, creating a good atmosphere, continue getting people through the gates, and even the way supports can improve there as well. So I think that there's a wee bit more of an interest seen on like the forum and stuff like that about people going to kind of the away games as well. So I think that that's a testament to how the team's playing just now and how people are seeing it being a worthy use of their time. And looking back 6 months ago, Euan, that was probably the complete opposite. So first and foremost, I think that is the most happy change that we could probably have, is that we're at least taking pride in our performances again.
Yeah, as you say, it's always good to hear that the atmosphere is a wee bit better, because sometimes home games can be a difficult one for creating an atmosphere just because of the number of people in the size of the ground. But a couple of little talking points in the game: the injury to Andrew Shinnie, the head knock. I believe he was knocked out cold from the challenge from Bacchus. It was good to see him coming out onto the pitch at half time, and he was up and about, albeit I believe he was a little bit groggy, but hopefully, because we've got the international break, shouldn't see him out of the squad for the Ross County game. But what was kind of your take on that challenge, Angus? Because see, for me, Shinnie's a player that's gone in there fully committed to go and win that ball, whilst Bacchus, I think it's really dangerous, and I don't think it's punished enough by referees when a player doesn't jump for the ball and makes a back like that. I think they're endangering their opponent by doing that, and it could have been a really, really serious injury for Andrew Shinnie.
No, I completely agree. It's a red card in rugby is the simplest thing to point at, to be honest. Not saying that, obviously, not like going to dig Bacchus out or that, or be like, fully intentional or that. It is something that players just do, where somebody is airborne and they will just give them a nudge. You shouldn't be able to do that unless you're, like in rugby, you can guarantee that they come down safely. As soon as somebody lands awkwardly like that, it should be punishable. No attempt to play the ball. He looks into Shinnie, gives him a nudge, tips him over in midair, and it is only going to take a matter of time before somebody is properly seriously hurt from it. Luckily, Shinnie's kind of woke up in tight, from it quite quickly, and he's not had sustained any further injuries. But it is and this isn't just like kind of like for like because it's been against us or that. It's something that is going to happen one day, and it's going to be somebody's going to get seriously hurt from it. I think we've seen in previous years in the Premier League that Harry Kane likes to do it. Have a look at the centre half jumping up and then just fall into them and feign for like a foul. I don't think it should be allowed because somebody is going to get properly injured from it. Yeah, if you're going to kind of go up in the challenge for that, you've at least got to go and make an effort for the ball. If you just go in there and bump the player who's airborne and tip them over, yeah, I don't see how that is not something that isn't punishable. But player well-being, I think they're too focused on other nonsense and adding stupid rules in every now and then to make other differences.
Yeah, exactly. As I say, it's a clear endangerment to the opponent. You talk about it in a rugby context. It's, as you say, that's a red card if they've made zero attempt to go and try and win the ball and they've endangered the opponent when they're in mid-flight, essentially, where they're not able to control their body in that context. But another kind of talking point, obviously, Luigi De Lucas grabbing his first goal for the club. You kind of mentioned it earlier on. He kind of came in out the cold a little bit for that Aberdeen game. He hadn't played an awful lot in the League Cup ties. Came into the side for that, was fantastic up against Duke. He then had a fantastic performance at Easter Road up against Euan. It's been a tremendous start to the season for Luigi, hasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think anybody could have foreseen this kind of happening. Not that he was, a poor player last season or anything like that, but as you're saying, in the Betfred Cup games, you like to kind of think of that as being the foreshadowing for the rest of the season, and I don't think he really got many minutes at all. So for him to come in straight away against Aberdeen was, a bit of a surprise. But talk about a player grabbing an opportunity with both hands and running with it. You're now probably talking that he's even overshadowing Mikey Devlin's performances, who's also been absolutely superb so far as well. I don't know if it's just kind of the personality of DeLucas and stuff like that's got fans more excited as well. But yeah, fair play to the guy. He's worked hard and he's, most of all the quality's been there. I think that maybe the criticism of him last season could be that, wasn't used to the kind of physicality or was expecting to have too much more time on the ball and stuff like that, where this season now he's been a lot more aggressive, he's been a lot more forward thinking and stuff like that straight away. And that's also a testament to the coaching team for kind of drilling that through a player who isn't kind of used to that kind of level of play and stuff. So yeah, long may it continue. But yeah, he's had an absolute brilliant start to the season. I think you've got to maybe put him a contender for a team of the season kind of call at the moment with the amount of poor defending that's going on in the league. It's definitely one of the standouts for sure.
Yeah, as you say, Luigi coming in halfway through last season, it's always difficult because you don't get that time to really acclimatise. And I know the manager's been very good in the past with players coming in from abroad in terms of drip feeding them almost into the side. I remember it in particular with Steve Lawson. He made his debut, and that kind of comment you made about wanting that extra touch on the ball, extra couple of seconds on the ball, you could tell that Steve Lawson had the technical aspects of being a good footballer for us, but it was just the kind of pace of the game. And he kind of came out the side for a good 3 to 4 months and then broke back into the side and was fantastic after that. And that was just that time needed to almost acclimatise to the Scottish game, because I don't think people give it the credit it deserves at times. And I think Luigi's been exactly the same. He's probably got chucked in a little bit more last year because of the injury to Io Obalai, and he's played a lot more games. And I think Fitzwater had suspensions and things like that as well during the second half of last season, which kind of forced him into playing a lot more minutes. But the fact that it's seen the likes of Morgan Boyes ending up moving on to Inverness, Devlin's obviously almost nailed down that left-hand side of the back three, and Luigi's come in there, and as I say, he's been fantastic. He's been a bit of a revelation for us this season, and as you say, long may it continue. But overall, we kind of predicted a 1-1. It's exactly what we got in the end, but it's overall a decent start to the season.
Hate being right all the time, eh?
We're delighted to have Strana Apparel as sponsors of Talk Livi. UK based with a Swedish soul, we are Strana. Strana is an independent fashion brand from Scotland who create high quality and stylish attire for on and off the terraces. Inspired by terrace culture, lifestyle and music, all their clothing is designed using quality materials and workmanship to combine the very best style and fit. All of this means you get a premium quality fashion at affordable prices while enjoying a simple and secure service.
As a bonus for Talk Livi listeners, you can get 10% off your order using the code TalkLivi at the checkout. We'll also have some exclusive giveaways during the season, so keep your eyes peeled on our socials for those too. And thanks to Sterner for sponsoring Talk Livi.
The Lionesses were in cup action against St Johnstone, looking to progress to a glamour tie with Glasgow City. It would be heartbreak for our women's side, as a late goal in extra time would see them fall to a 3-2 defeat in Perth. Angus, you were there to take it in and do the social media updates as always. What did you make of the performance? I think probably the biggest talking point to start off with would be quite a large scale number of changes to the starting 11.
Yeah, for sure. 10 changes made, only Shannon Todd being the one to keep our position from last week was an interesting one. I understand kind of like squad rotation and stuff like that. I guess it's like an opportunity to give some players who haven't had as much game time, a run in the side and stuff like that. I do think 10 is a lot. And, it is basically the full team entirely changed there. I think that got a double header coming up against them as well. I don't know if there's much of a tactical kind of thinking for that one as well, where you've kind of got two teams to play there. But I think that does also kind of pose that kind of problem where if you do play really really well in that kind of first game, which I'd say that the team who did go out and start the game on Sunday there did do like a solid job where you've kind of got a bit more of a tougher headache now going into that St Johnstone game because there's a couple of players who have maybe made a good name for themselves or even if they just put themselves further into the manager's kind of head. A couple of players were absent from it. I think like Sharon Hughes-Lee, player of the month, was not involved in the squad. I think Ashley Elizabeth and Natasha Frew were both carrying kind of injuries or illnesses as well. So a couple of enforced ones there as well. But yeah, kind of going into the game there, I think it was presenting like an opportunity for a lot of players to kind of showcase what they can do. I think we actually started the game pretty brightly. I think you could see that energy from the players that were, given that opportunity to start from the beginning, were kind of taking that with a lot of high energy pressing up the top, create a couple of chances. We do concede quite a very poor goal to begin with. I think it's a corner kick comes in and essentially the ball just drops in the 6-yard box and there's just a wee mini stramash that's going on there and eventually it's poked home by Lassie Simpson to make it 1-0. I think it's one of those ones that looking back, you're maybe looking for a goalkeeper to come and punch, or for somebody to get their head on it, or there's a good couple of chances I think before as the ball breaks in the box, it's kind of just lying in the box there where somebody should be able to get like a toe or that to it. But to be credit to the team, there isn't an awful lot of head drop there. I think Shannon Mulligan tries to score from the halfway line straight away. It's a large bounce that spares the goalkeeper's blushes essentially. It could have been one that was like, I think it ends up bouncing through the keeper's legs or something like that, and it still goes over, and it's like, oh, that could have been incredible. But the team kept on pressing. They got that equaliser, very very quickly straight after as well. It's a very good run from Shannon Todd. I think had one of her better games of the season out in that left hand side. Carrying the ball forward. She actually cuts inside this time, plays a great pass to Erin Burns, who has an absolutely tremendous finish from the right hand side, and very much back into the game. And kind of like the men's game, I would say that it was kind of a competitive match with not an awful lot of chances kind of being carved out. The rest of the first half, there wasn't kind of too much to kind of go on about. Both teams were just kind of cancelling each other out. It was absolutely scorching. It was like 25 degrees, so there was a couple of water breaks as well there, which was, I think, desperately needed. And I think that that's something that also took a toll on the team as well, where a lot of these players hadn't played any minutes at all this season, or had been succumbed to maybe only a 20-minute there, and then for it to go go to basically 120 minutes of extra time in that heat as well was something that was maybe a wee bit step too far for some players who were maybe struggling kind of fitness wise and that. But I guess it'll be a good exercise for getting those kind of players up to scratch as well. But yeah, going into the second half, again, we take the lead. I think Stacey Calder gets the ball out left, puts a looping cross in, and it's great tenacity from Erin, who I thought had like a really solid game all round, just from her willingness to run up and down the right hand flank. And I think it's the second time of asking she's able to fire in from a tight angle. And yeah, she's definitely one of the players who was taking the opportunity with kind of both hands there, which throws up an interesting dilemma for playing next week. As now she's the top goal scorer, so it's going to be interesting to see if there's maybe a tactical tweak there to fit in some of these players who have been kind of on form. But yeah, kind of going on to the game, like further on to the second half, a couple of changes were made. I think four were made at one time. I think that maybe kind of disrupted us a little bit as well, where we had maybe too many players kind of getting accustomed to the game tempo at the same time. And I think that allowed for St Johnstone to basically come into it more so. I don't think that they were necessarily peppering the goal, but they were getting more free kicks and corners and like dangerous positions, which, I think they had the ball in the back of the net twice. I think there was one that got disallowed for a foul, and then there was one that the ball must have just went out and came back in, which, maybe we've got quite lucky for. But we get like a late sucker punch at the end with a late goal. Again, I think it's a loose ball that falls into the box, and we're not able to clear it, and it falls to a striker who's able to fire home. And I think this is only a handful of minutes before the final whistle, which is a sore one to take. We're into extra time, as we mentioned there as well. The heat. The players haven't played an awful lot kind of over this time. I think it was a cacophony of things that were maybe leading towards St Johnstone getting a wee bit more of the momentum. But the team continued to power on. The likes of Brodie Clark up front, who I think made her first start of the season. For her to play 120 minutes, you could probably tell that she was tiring a bit, but not once did she stop running at all. I think Raewyn Murphy as well in the middle of the park was doing really well in terms of that, where powering through and making all those runs and stuff like that, and whilst having the quality on the ball. And I think they're another two players who can hold their heads high with their performances, and throws them into contention for next week as well. Like Stacey Calder and Anna Murray and Fee at the back as well, considering taking over from a solid back line that we're used to having with Jess Tash and Bryony now, all did really, really well as well. Again, though, kind of going into the extra time, not an awful lot of chances. And unfortunately, again, Ewan, it's another kind of switching off from a set piece that's cost us. This time it's, to be fair to St Johnstone, it's quite a well-worked free kick. They're able to get it to the inside the box, and Lassie's got, plenty of time to fire a shot into the top corner, and it makes it 3-2 to them. And, at that point, there's no time left to claw anything back. And unfortunately, we fall out of the Sky Sports Cup at the first time of asking, and I think that's where the disappointment will be, that we probably could have taken more of advantage of that kind of game. Big incentive for the next round playing against Glasgow City as well, but not a bad performance, I would say. I think it's just one that as I could have been.
Yeah, you kind of talk about those 10 changes that were made to the side. We kind of talked about it. You spoke about it with Mike at the start of the season in terms of the size of the squad that they've got for this season. And we have also spoke about how that could potentially be difficult to manage, having that many players and trying to accommodate. I'm sure every player is going to be wanting to get minutes on the pitch, and giving these girls the opportunity to play at the weekend there, the incentive for them is probably, this is your opportunity to play your way into the side. And as you say, from the sounds of it, certainly Erin Burns grabbing headlines with a couple of goals. There are players there who are certainly giving the manager a headache for next week.
Yeah, 1,000%. I think that an interesting decision to make that many changes, but as you say, that gives all those players the incentive to, kind of try and play their way into the team, because essentially, like in the case of Erin Burns there, you score 2 goals, you're going to be kind of expected to kind of come in, aren't you? Obviously, a lot more kind of things go into consideration, like training and, the things that have happened like throughout the whole season. But, it can't hurt. It's a very healthy thing for a team, isn't it, to have, players all kind of firing. You look into the middle of the park where we've had, kind of Brogan, Courtney and Hannah playing there, like Sir Raewyn and Brodie haven't done themselves any harm by, playing really well over, 120 minutes, building up fitness there as well, showing that they're they're more than capable options for this kind of level. Yeah, it's one of those interesting ones, I think, Ewan. It's one that maybe Mike's going to be tossing and turning over because it is going to be a bit more difficult to choose a team now. But at the end of the day, that's the competitiveness you want in your squad. That's what you want to have from a team if you're going to have that size of a squad. You want to have players who are chomping at the bit and are ready to kind of get involved whenever they're called upon. And yeah, I think that for the most part, you'd say that happened there on Sunday.
And again, taking into consideration the fact that St Johnstone are a team in the same league as them, you've made 10 changes to your side. After 90 minutes, it's finished 2 each, and it's taken a very late equaliser to take it to extra time as well. Again, that's a good marker for where the girls are at, stepping up a division into SWPL2, and the fact that, as I say, they've made so many changes to the side and they've still been more than competitive.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you can see that, trying to feel out the teams in the league as well and trying to trying to see what everybody else is like. I think maybe having like a team like that in a cup is maybe a decent thing for that, where, if you want to prioritize the league or whatever, then, you can kind of like put the feelers out. Obviously, we don't have too much more time before we travel to face them again, quite strangely to get them 2 weeks in a row. But hopefully that they're taking a lot from that game, and can point out kind of areas to exploit. I think down the wings you can definitely get at St Johnstone, and I think that was showcased there. So yeah, I think the next week of training should be interesting to see how they kind of like start to work on like a game plan, devising kind of like who's going to be starting to kind of punish them, to punish the opposition and stuff like that, having learned kind of what they're like. But yeah, I think that there's definitely positives to take from the game. Competitive enough in that as well. It's just unfortunate that there's a couple of goals that we've maybe sloppily lost that's kind of cost us in the end. The power of the cup, I'm guessing, you in where it can kind of go that kind of way, where it only takes a couple of poor goals to kind of concede, which can cost you. But who knows? Maybe the league game this weekend could be a wee bit different.
I'm delighted to welcome Ross from the County Corner back on to Talk Livi. Ross, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. You and yourself?
I'm all good, mate. All good. Busy day, busy couple of weeks, just moving house, new job on the horizon as well. So yeah, it's been pretty eventful. But let's start off from a Ross County perspective. Let's have a look back at last season. Safe to say it was a kind of season of struggle for Ross County after the previous campaign, finishing in the top 6. Ended up finishing 11th and staying up through the playoffs. Were you ever in doubt that County might be dropping down into the Championship?
Yeah, definitely. With 20 minutes to go in that second leg of the playoff final, when we're 3-0 down in aggregate, myself, my dad, and my girlfriend were all sat there thinking, right, we're going to be able to experience Arbroath away, and experience like the different away grounds that we've maybe not been to before, and things like that. So, at that point, it was certainly looking pretty grim. And yeah, I mean, we've spoken about it enough as it is in terms of a comeback. That's one of the best comebacks in football I've seen. Just a crazy day. And I think moments like that in football almost make the previous 9 months of pain and struggles potentially that we've had through the season well worth it, just for that moment of ecstasy right at the end. And I think that's definitely kind of carried on through the summer and into the season as well. I think there's been a real momentum about the club following that win against Partick. And I think it's just about trying to capitalise on it in terms of, our season ticket numbers are up, which is great. Shirt sales as well for the new home top have been, I think it's the record sales that the club have ever had in terms of a home shirt. So that's been really well received as well. And yeah, I think there's a good feeling about the club just now. So if it wasn't for that moment against Partick, I don't know what might have happened. If it was, if we'd beaten Killian the last league game of the season, perhaps there might not have been that kind of same wave as such. But yeah, all worked out well in the end.
It's amazing how the playoffs work in Scotland, because obviously you look at the playoffs down south and it's all teams who have had a good season that are reaching the playoffs, whilst in Scotland you've got a team there in all the divisions. We've experienced that ourselves, being the team that finishes second bottom, albeit it was in the Championship. And kind of similar to yourselves, we were 5-2 down against Stranraer after the opening game, and we were 2-1 down going into stoppage time and then scored 2 goals in stoppage time to make it 4-1, take it to extra time. Only difference being we lost in extra time. So I kind of absolutely get you. It's that kind of euphoria. And I remember Halkett scoring that equaliser. You thought you're absolutely dead and buried and you'd resigned yourself at that point. And then all of a sudden, you've got a lifeline again. And it was actually probably sort of the biggest absolute pandemonium I've seen at Livi in a long, long time at that point. But kind of touch on that comeback in the playoffs. Was it 2 goals down after the first leg, and then winning and then being 3-0 down on aggregate? I think everyone would have had money on Partick Thistle kind of getting over the line and seeing it through. But just how fantastic a comeback was it, and the scenes up in Dingwall as well at the final whistle, final penalty going in from Josh Sims.
It was incredible because it's the first time County have been involved in any of the playoff systems since they've been reintroduced. And I always really enjoyed watching the playoffs as a neutral, but I never wanted to be involved in them just with the drama and the stress that they would hold. And that first leg at Firhill, Partick should have been out of sight in that game. We'd been down to 10 men so early on. They were 2-0 up at halftime. The chances they had in the second half to put the game and the tie to bed was extraordinary, but guys stood strong. Ross Laidlaw made some excellent saves. Like Jack Baldwin, Keith Watson were throwing themselves in front of any ball that came their way to give us a chance going into the second leg. And I think at 2-0, you're always thinking, right, if we get the first goal here or get an early goal, then anything's possible. And that was the kind of the mindset of County fans going into the game. So it wasn't ideal that then Partick got their goal just in the stroke of half time, and then you're thinking, well, yeah, it's over now. But then in the start of the second half, there was that kind of, we had a right flurry of chances where there was a shot cleared off the line. There was a couple of scrambles in the 6-yard box. The squads seemed to really kind of come out with the bit between their teeth in terms of trying to turn it around. And it's obviously come out in the aftermath, but it turns out that the Partick Thistle players in the dressing room were playing music at halftime, either assuming that the game was
rookie mistake, eh?
You don't want to give like your opposition any way to, or any sorts of motivation to try and get back into the game. And if that's the case, if that was them potentially already celebrating, thinking they got the job done, it was, as we saw, it was far from it. And I think, as soon as we get a bit of stroke of luck with the penalty decision, I think, on another day that we wouldn't have got that. The handball rule's been well debated throughout the last year and a bit in Scottish football. So we get the penalty, score it, and I said to my girlfriend Sophie that if we get a second goal quickly here, there could be something crazy on the cards. I didn't expect us to get the goal literally within like 30 seconds of the kickoff, but I think Partick's problem that day was that kickoff, they showed that they were shaken just by the one goal, never mind when they really started to have pressure on them after we grabbed the second. Taking a kick off and playing it straight out for a throw in from like a simple pass, it was, I don't know, there was just a little, you could sense just the momentum had shifted. And then Keith Watson gets a red card for what's viewed as a professional foul, and then gets overturned, and in those moments you're thinking, well, we're down to 10 men, it's gone now, and then the red card's overturned, and thinking, oh wait, hold on, we're still alive. It was literally just a total roller coaster. And then the stoppage time equalizer was just bedlam, absolute bedlam from where the squad were 20-25 minutes ago to that point was incredible. I don't think anyone saw it coming that was watching it, either as a County fan, as a neutral, as a Partick fan even. It was unbelievable. And fair play to the players who clearly had the bit between their teeth to do it, and Malky and Don and the rest of the coaching staff as well, that clearly gave them the belief to go on and do it. And yeah, the penalties were just unbelievable. It was the most nerve-wracking 10-15 minutes I've ever had as a County fan watching that, because Sophie, again, walking to the ground, I said, oh, what do you think? Do you think we'll do it in normal time? Do you think we'll win? And she was like, I think we'll win on penalties. And I said, I can't do that. I said, I cannot take that. I just couldn't think, I couldn't stand the thought of potentially losing that in front of the jail end.
Yeah.
Just the worry and the anxiety that would have gone with that. Yeah, just even the chance that we had to win the shootout with Keith Watson's penalty, we're all ready to celebrate, and then it goes over the bar, and we're thinking that's it gone, that's our chance to stay up. And then Ross Laidlaw makes another great save from Ross Docherty's penalty, and then Josh Sims has had quite quite a battle both on and off the pitch over the last few years. So in terms of someone to step up and score a penalty like that and keep us in the league, couldn't have written a better story in that aspect. So yeah, pitch invasion, the celebrations after it was just absolutely crazy. I'll never experience anything like that in Dingwall again. There's been quite a few special moments in terms of likes of the Scottish Cup quarter-final win against Hibs. There's been, victories over Celtic, derby wins over Cali and stuff like that, but nothing will ever top that. Just from a point of view of like a roller coaster of a day, it was just incredible.
We've experienced the playoffs in like both scenarios where the team, as I say, finishing second bottom, and we were the team that ended up going down as a result. But I remember when we got promoted from the Championship, and I wouldn't pick another way for us to have gone up. I think the playoffs, as you say, there's the nerves around it. I don't think I'd ever be able to replicate the nerves I felt as a fan. I think the first game when we went up to Tannadice, we'd finished second, we were complete underdogs all season, and you're going, just enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
If we score a goal in the playoffs, great, and we scored in the first minute, and then we produced that brilliant comeback at Tannadice, and then all of a sudden you're going, we've got a chance, and then all of a sudden the nerves just hit. I was sick before the game. I was like, I think I got signed off the phone at work for an hour because I'd been to the toilet twice to be sick because my nerves were that bad going into the game on the Friday night. It's just utterly ridiculous what a game of football did to me. But I remember going, thoroughly enough, we got promoted against Partick Thistle and relegated them, and we'd played them at the start of that season. And I felt as soon as we got past Dundee United, I was like, we're going up. We'll beat Partick Thistle over 2 games because we'd played them at the start of that season in the League Cup, and we battered them for 90 minutes and drew and beat them on penalties in the group stages. But it was, as I say, it was one of those that I was convinced we were going up when it was Partick Thistle that ended up finishing second bottom, because I was like, we've got their number, I reckon. And, as I say, winning a league's great because you're fantastic over 36, 38 games, whatever division, but the playoffs, there's just something really special about, and in your case, staying up in the playoffs. For us, it was promotion. But to kind of touch on this season, as you say, that kind of feel-good factor seems to have carried over into the new season, and there's been a bit of pretty decent recruitment on paper as well up in Dingwall. What have you made of the summer signings so far? One of them being Kyle Turner, funnily enough, from Partick Thistle. So he did get his opportunity to play Premiership football in the end.
He did. Overall, the recruitment I've been really, really impressed with. You mentioned Kyle there, and I think he's spoken about this story before, and it's quite funny how he actually ended up coming up to county, because in the days following the playoff game against Partick, obviously all the players, all the staff were going on their holidays, and it turns out that both Kyle and Malky were on the same flight to Dubai, booked into the same hotel, checked in at the same time. So they were kind of talking away, but as you can imagine, Kyle was obviously disappointed from following on from the Partick game, as you would be as a player in that situation.
Started off badly when Malky Mackay went, get it right up here when he got on the flight, I take it.
He's probably thought, oh no way, of all the places like for that to happen. But I think Kyle's spoken about how they started speaking, just poolside and stuff like that as the holidays were going on, and Malky was asking him about his plans for this season, and Kyle's obviously alluded that he was planning on moving on from Partick, and Malky said to him, well, you're a player we'd certainly be interested in trying to having up in Dingwall and things like that. So just interesting how that kind of move came about, and he's done really well. He showed a lot of different sides to his game as well. I think he had to be patient in terms of the league matches so far, but when he came on against St Johnstone for Danda when Jan went off injured, only took him 6 minutes to open the scoring, and then the following week against Airdrie, he had a goal and an assist within the first 7 minutes. So it showed how he could impact the game going forward. But in terms of like even off the ball, he's just a nippy little so-and-so in the middle of the park that you would kind of want, kind of winding up opposition midfielders, getting in about, getting stuck in as well. So it shows that he can mix it. And in terms of the other signings as well, we'd obviously lost 2 defensive players in Keith Watson and Alex Iacovitti, who had been at the club for years. Keith had come through the championship with us and was part of the relegation survival squad, then top 6, and then obviously everything that went on last season as well. So to lose them, we lost quite a bit of experience in there, but Will Nightingale and Ryan Leake have come in, and they both seem very, very good. Nightingale's arrived initially on loan from Wimbledon. it's his first move. He's been at Wimbledon since he's been a young kid. So he's an experienced defender. He's very good in the air, which has been really impressive. And Ryan Leake's almost like a direct replacement for Jakovic as a left-sided centre half.
Yeah.
A big unit. He looks relatively comfortable on the ball as well. So that's decent to have that kind of balance on the left-hand side. Josh Reed's come back from Coventry City. Josh moved down there during the 2020-21 season.
He's one of your kind of youth products, isn't he, Josh Reed?
He was. He did really well that first kind of 6 months when he was in the team before the move to Coventry. And he just went down there. It just didn't work out for him. He had a couple of injuries and kind of halted his progress. And I think obviously with Coventry kind of, having a bit of a revival themselves in terms of pushing on in the Championship, it was almost probably the wrong time if they were, if it was a few years ago that Josh had joined them, or a few years prior to that, he might have been able to kind of mix it in terms of their first team, but didn't quite happen. So it's nice that he's come back up, kind of looking to kind of kickstart his career again. And, you always want to see kind of one of the local lads. He's went to Dingwall Academy. He lives literally just around the corner from the stadium and that too, that, these guys that have grown up, come through the academy, that, they get what they're doing. Brophy's come back on a permanent deal as well. He missed most of pre-season just because of the injury he picked up at the end of last season. Tore his thigh there, so it's just been trying to get him back up to speed, and he's looked sharper as each game he's kind of come on, which is good. And I think what you get with Eamon Brophy. He scores goals regardless of where he's at, what level it's at, and I think he's a very unique kind of striker. I think he's technically he's very good. I think he's got a bit.
He has a very shoot on sight type of striker, isn't he? From my memory of watching him.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when we signed him in January, that's what we were in desperate need of. Because I think at times that up until January, we were, I think, certainly the lowest scorers in the league. We were struggling to kind of create chances, finish chances. And that was one of the reviews that like St Mirren fans or Kilmarnock fans had of him, that he'll drive you mad because he'll just shoot from anywhere. But in my opinion, that's actually what we needed, because at times we were just trying to walk the ball into the net, or we needed someone with a bit of like a selfish streak that'll just get the ball out of their feet and have a go, because you just never know. A keeper might spill something, might fly into the top corner. Okay, and maybe 9 times out of 10 it'll fly over the bar, but you'd rather these guys taking these chances. So that was good. Jay Henderson's followed him up from St Mirren as well, and Jay's I think he burst onto the scene at St Mirren with those couple of stunners against Dundee United in a couple of games a couple of seasons ago. Just didn't quite work out for him. Went across the bridge to Cali Thistle. Seems to have done quite well there. So nice that they've developed a player to come into the.
I was about to say it wouldn't be a transfer window if there wasn't somebody from the other Highland club joining Ross County.
Oh well, there was a second as well with Scott Allardyce following him too. So it wasn't just one this time. There was two. Technically one, since Scott was signed there, but so both of them have arrived. Scott's picked up a bit of a knee injury, so I think he's out for best part of like a month or something, so probably won't see him. But again, it's just having a bit of physicality in the middle of the park, which has been good. And one that I think's kind of impressed a lot of people is James Brown, right back, signed him from Blackburn Rovers. He was captain at Drogheda United over in Ireland before he moved to Blackburn, and had a couple of loan spells last season around League One, League Two, and he's very good. He's very energetic on the right hand side. Likes to get forward. He's a kind of what every side would want from a wing back. Deliveries into the box are very, very good. He's been really impressive. Scored the goal at Celtic Park, and the second goal in the 4-2 defeat there on the opening day of the season. So I think he's really surprised a lot of people in terms of his quality. So and Max Sheaf has come to the club as well. He's come from the lower leagues in England, so it's kind of developing him. And he came with a really good record at Redditch United for goals and assists as a midfielder. So just trying to get him up to speed. And I think his signing's almost similar to one that George Harbin last season, that these players have got potential. You guys know it yourselves from picking up players in the lower leagues that that are gems down there. And obviously George turned out to be one for us last season, and it's hope that the Max will be the same.
As I kind of mentioned, it has been a pretty positive start to the season. Progress in the League Cup, you're into the quarterfinals. Aberdeen you've got in the quarterfinals as well, and 2 wins from 4 in the league. Although your 2 defeats, it's both halves of the Old Firm that you've lost to, which would expect to lose those games. So what have you made of the start to the new campaign?
Been very, very good. I think in terms of the League Cup group, to get through that initially, I think was a good start. I think we were aiming to obviously go through seeded, but the defeat by Kelty on penalties kind of put that to bed. But it turned out actually better for us because we would have had a kinder draw being unseeded, which we did. So we got Airdrie into the next round, whereas
we were similar. We ended up with Ayr United in the last 16. So
it's just strange because I think we were all worried in terms of the draw last season. You know, we miss out by, I think it was by goal difference last season from being seeded, and you know, we get Celtic in the next round. You're thinking, well, you want to avoid that. So as soon as we see we're not going to be seeded for the next round, we're kind of dreading our luck a little bit. But no, it was good. Performance has been very good. I spoke there about the goals at the start of last season. They were really tough to come by. They've not been this season. The teams have been scoring for fun. Rangers are the only team that have kept a clean sheet against us so far this season. I think it's 23 goals in 9 matches in all competitions, which, you know, is pretty good going. So yeah, it's been really, really positive. Even the 2 defeats against Celtic and Rangers, there have been, you know, plenty of positives to take from that in terms of the 2 goals at Celtic Park. You know, it's not often teams will go there and score 2. We could have been 2-0 up in the first 15 minutes. Had we taken our chances that come our way, maybe got a penalty decision for us. But no, we pressed them really high that day as well. I think that's what we were surprised at. We thought we might have just tried to sit off them, just try and negate the spaces. But it was impressive to see us kind of go after them and try and go toe-to-toe with them, which we did for majority of the game. The 2-0 win against St Johnstone, I think St Johnstone were at obviously a low point at that point at this kind of start of the season too. We dominated that. That should have been a 5 or 6-0 win quite comfortably with the chances we created and just didn't take. And then beating Airdrie it looked like it was going to be a nice and simple day when you're 2-0 up after 5 minutes. Yeah, 3-1 up at half time. You're thinking, okay, it's nice and easy. Then a bit of a couple of wobbly moments before the end of normal time. We're going into extra time at 3-3. And yeah, we still got through it, which is fine. And I think it might be beneficial in the long run that the squad have seen that, you know, even if they get pegged back and they're under the cosh a little bit in extra time, that they've still got enough to kind of see them through. It's just kind of carrying that mental strength from the playoff matches last season. And then I think the only disappointing spell that we've probably had at the start of the season was the first half against Rangers. I thought we started quite well, but then there was like the 15-20 minute spell where we kind of dropped off them, and Rangers got their 2 goals from that point. But then in the second half, again, we chased the game really well. Jordan White was unlucky not to have half the scoreline literally just at the start of the second half with his chance, and then we got there's a different game there. But no, it's been good. And in terms of going to Rugby Park on Saturday, we've not won it at Killie since September 2017. You know, so to come away with a 1-0 win there, regardless of Kevin Clancy's.
I was about to say there was a superb assist in there from Kevin Clancy, wasn't that?
Incredible. It's the timing of that whistle is just incredible. Like watching it back in the replays, it's like less than half a second he's got from the ball leaving Stuart Finley's head to it flying and the ball being over the line, and he's managed to blow his whistle in that space, which, you know, I don't think Josh Reed's ever going to give away a better penalty than he did in that moment there. You know, that's up there with like Luis Suarez's handball against Ghana in the 2010 World Cup, you know, in terms of, you know, so no, it was really positive. I think ideally County fans would have been maybe looking for about 4 points from the first 4 games. I don't think anyone would have complained of that. I think especially when you see Kilmarnock start to the season when they're, you know, beating Rangers on the opening day of the league season and then Celtic in the League Cup. But, you know, to be sat on 6 points and, you know, the 2 defeats against either side of the Old Firm, but with positive performances in them, has been really encouraging to see.
Yeah, exactly. You've got results in the games you look to be picking up results in over the course of the season, haven't you? And, you know, you mentioned the kind of goal scoring aspect of County this season. I remember the campaign you guys finished in the top 6, and I always thought if you lost your goals in the likes of Charles Cook, because defensively you were very leaky at the back that first season under Malky Mackay, and I kind of always thought if they lose their goals from their side, they're going to really struggle the following season, which was exactly what happened last year, wasn't it? But looking ahead to the game, obviously we've got the international break in between, but what can Livy expect from Ross County? Has there been a change over the summer in terms of how Mackay sets the team up, or in terms of personnel that we would probably see?
Yes and no. I think up until Saturday at Rugby Park, we've been kind of deploying with more of a 4-4-2, just a flat back four of James Brown at right back, George Harmon in the earlier weeks, but it could be Josh Reed who came in on Saturday at left back, and then two centre halves, so Jack Baldwin and Ryan Leake. Connor Randall, who's been moved from right back into the centre
midfield, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he's been absolutely superb in there. He's been a revelation just in terms of just adding a bit of defensive cover and just keeping the ball moving. I think players that'll come through any of the elite academies down in England. Connor's come through at Liverpool. He's technically obviously going to be very good, which has helped kind of his transition into there. Malky's had plenty of confidence, and so far he's not put a foot wrong in there. So it'll be himself and either Victor Laturi or Kyle Turner next to him. We've usually gone with Danda as one of the wide players, or the wider number 10s, and potentially Josh Sims on the other side, and then Simon Murray and Jordan White up front. But then on Saturday, following the second half against Rangers, where we switched back to a 3-5-2, we went to Rugby Park with the 3-5-2 with Nightingale as the third centre half next to Baldwin and Leake, and Brown as the right wing back, Reid as the left wing back, and a midfield three of Randall, Turner and Danda, with the two strikers of White and Murray up front. So I think in the 4-4-2 we've been very fluid going forward, very attacking. I think with the type of players that we've got in terms of Danda and Turner, technically very good, very creative, can open up defences, good ball carriers. You can go long as well there to Jordan White, who's you guys are obviously familiar with as well, as a decent target man, can bring players into the play. Simon Murray will run his heart out for 90 minutes as well. He offers a threat in behind. So there is a good mix there. But then even on Saturday, I think over the years we've seen some county teams maybe get bullied against some more physical teams. I'll use that kind of kindly, whoever it might have been against. Whereas on Saturday, I think we did that to Kilmarnock. We bullied them, which is something that we've not often seen. We're quite happy to go into a physical battle with teams and come out on top. So I think there's definitely different sides to this county team that are encouraging to see. There's different like plan A, plan B, plan C, etc., which is encouraging. So in terms of the shape we'll line up with, honestly, I don't know. I would like to think we'll probably edge back to the 4-4-2 if we're at home and maybe trying to expand on the play a bit more. But in terms of defensively on Saturday with the 3-5-2, we barely conceded a chance in terms of being opened up through midfield or defensively. It was only ever from set pieces or the penalty that Kilmarnock had where they were kind of having shots on goal. So no, it'll be very interesting to see, just based on the styles of performances we've seen.
It was a 3-5-2 quite a lot last season from memory, and obviously you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but we've kind of deployed a 3-4-2-1 almost this season, and it's what we've consistently played through the League Cup games and into the league campaign as well. So it'll be interesting if Mackay's done his homework and maybe almost tries to match up. I don't know if that's an option, but as you say, County seem to have, as you kind of mentioned, that plan A, plan B. So it's a bit unpredictable how they could set up. And I know the game at the weekend that we had against St Mirren, automatically, because both teams play that kind of 3-4-3 almost, they just cancelled each other out for 45 minutes. And so it'll be interesting, as I say, to see what Malky Mackay does with the side. But kind of looking at the personnel who might be involved, I think it's probably safe to say that the danger man for County, Jan Danda, is definitely one of kind of your creative forces. Delivery caused us no end of problems at the tail end of last season with the two goals he scored up in Dingwall, the game after the split. Who else are Livy going to need to be very wary of?
I mentioned James Brown just in terms of recruitment and things, and I think his energy from right back it's incredible. He's such a threat going forward as well. He's not afraid to try and take on his man, and for a fullback, his deliveries into the box are second to none as well. Simon Murray's obviously a guy who started the season bang on form as well. He's got seven goals in the League Cup, and then he opened his league account for the season as well on Saturday with the winner at Rugby Park. So as a striker playing with confidence, you can't ask for much more than that. Mentioned Kyle Turner, his technical ability, he's chipping in with goals and assists as well. So no, there's definitely threats in that county team, and I've not even mentioned likes of Jordan White, who's caused plenty of teams problems so far as well. Brophy on the bench, players like that. So no, if I was to pick out a few, you mentioned Jan there. I think Jan's technically one of the best I've ever seen at county. Just by going by his ability, and his ceiling is so high. I think you guys know what it's like in keeping your best players in like Joe Newbley and things like that, and how important these guys are. Even if it's just half a season that they end up sticking around for, that's potentially the difference between relegation and maybe a mid-table place. And Malky was really adamant that Jan was not going to be sold in this transfer window unless it was like an absolutely extraordinary offer that the club, had to consider. So I don't know if that's maybe just with his contract running down, it expires next summer, if that's maybe going to be a viewpoint that the club take in January. Might just be positions where we are that, if we're suddenly pushing for a top 6 place or even the opposite end, if we're fighting a relegation battle, again, it's keeping your key players that can get you out of it. And if he was to leave for a free in the summer, that would balance the cost then of keeping your place in the Premiership or those different, the places, the prize money you'll earn from that. So it's just trying to get that balance, I guess. So the guys that I've listed are definitely threats.
Where do you think Livy could potentially cause County problems? As you mentioned, that County seem to be this season a bit more capable of going into the physical battle, and certainly from our perspective, it's something we've got back to this season so far as being the absolute bastards of the Scottish Premiership and just being horrible to play against, with every single opposition fan complaining about our style of football again, which personally I absolutely love. So where do you think Livy can maybe get some joy against County?
I actually had that. There was Killie fans complaining about County style on Saturday and stuff like that as well. And I was thinking, that's popcorn the kettle black from a Derek McInnes side there from years of that Aberdeen team. But no, I think there's definitely areas that you can exploit. I think, there's been a lot made of we are very good going forward. There are still a couple of maybe defensive lapses at the back. There's maybe been a couple of soft penalties that we've given away and things like that. And even looking back to the goals you guys scored last season, I think back to the Newbley's one to open the scoring and the 2-1 win at Almond Vale. And I think, those crosses into the box, if guys like Newbley can win a physical battle against, that was Conor Randall that day. But if you're looking at tucking in as, wing backs or as a wide centre half, these guys are going to have to be ready for a battle. And I think, there's definitely the potential to get change out of the County defence in terms of the physical battle, which is why I was so pleased to see them stand up to what came at them on Saturday, because I think that those were the question marks I had, which they have answered a lot of them. But I guess it's just to see if they'll be able to do that consistently rather than, just on a one-off game. So you've mentioned there that, it's back to the old Livingston style and things. So yeah, I'd say there's definitely potential change to get out of the guys if you match them physically. And even like Bruce Anderson getting in behind the defence, I don't think the three of Nightingale, Baldwin or Leake or if it's a 2 are the quickest of centre halves. So there's the potential there for that maybe to get exploited. And that was similar to the game in January as well, when Anderson was the second one, wasn't it, running at, I can't remember who the defender was at the time, but there are potential there to get at them.
Yeah, it's something we've kind of deployed almost the last few weeks. Is we've started up top with Curtis Guthrie, who's nicest possible way is a bit of a battering ram and just kind of roughs teams up, but he's been fairly effective at it this season. And then looking at the last half hour, we've then put Bruce on to stretch the game, and it's caused teams a few problems. It almost worked perfectly at the weekend there, albeit it was just a kind of couple of inches offside for the goal that got disallowed. But what are you going then, prediction wise, Ross?
I'll always back my team. I'll always back my team.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to, don't you? You've got to.
Absolutely. I'm going to say 2-1 County. I think, I've mentioned there the threat that you guys can potentially impose on the County back line, and it's. I think you'll score. With that, just with the players you've mentioned there, Bruce Anderson, Newbley, they're technically very, very good players, and they'll cause majority of Premiership teams problems. So I think he'll score, but I would like to think that going forward we do have enough, and the variety of options as well, as I said, that we can change from a plan A to a plan B or a plan C depending on the moment. So I'd like to think that the 3 points can stay in Dingwall.
Well, I hope not if I'm making the trip up there. But looking at the podcast, obviously you started the podcast fairly recently, the County Corner. You've had some fantastic guests on. I think Don Cowie was your first one. You've also had an ex-Livy fan's favourite and Josh Mullen on as well. For anyone who wants to tune into the podcast, where can they find you?
So just to go on the promotional mode, we're in all your favorite podcast streaming sites. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, we're all on there. So just the County Corner podcast is where we're located. We're at the County Corner on Twitter/X, however you want to,
I've never got round to changing our graphics to put the X in rather than the wee bird.
No, exactly. Just stand by the wee bird. It depends where you want to put your allegiances, I guess. So, no, it's been really good, and yeah, you mentioned the guests that we've had on. It's been really encouraging. The club have been really good working with us and stuff. So, getting access to like the press conferences and stuff has been really good. Different guests on and stuff, which it's been really enjoyable. So,
I encourage anyone to tune into it because, as you can tell, listening to Ross, he's an absolute bundle of knowledge when it comes to Ross County. But Ross, thank you very much for coming back on the podcast. Obviously, wish you guys best of luck for the remainder of the season. However, when I do make the trip up the A9 the following week, I'm wishing you the worst of luck for the afternoon.
Oh, absolutely. I totally get it. And look, it'll be interesting to watch the battle of the teams with the two lowest budgets in the league, if, the managers are to be believed in that. So, yeah, it'll be good.
That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. We really appreciate you tuning in every week, and we'd love to hear your feedback. You can leave us a review on iTunes or drop us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
As Angus said, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, so simply search Talk Livi to find us, and you'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there. And any shares and likes are always appreciated. All our episodes are available on all the usual podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. And we're also on YouTube, and we'd love you to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you, though, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week. Thanks again to all our listeners for tuning in. Let's hope for another great week following the Lothians' finest football team in Scotland too, Euan.
Exactly. It's big games for Scotland against Cyprus and the old enemy England as well. So best of luck for Scotland as well.
Livingston, oh Livingston, into that